You're tuned to the Business Rundown. Grab your coffee and enjoy.
All right, welcome everybody back to the Business Rundown with your host Chad Kraft and Matt Sanchez. And so today we are talking about probably one of my favorite subjects within business, which is actually marketing. Because marketing is really what opens up the funnel, or hopefully the floodgate, to future business. And so today, on today's episode, we're really going to talk to Chad, who has a phenomenal background in marketing. He's had a successful marketing company or has a successful marketing company. And today I really want to pick his brain on some of the secrets that he uses with his clients to really drive results. And so if you're like me and you like to get results, listen in. So Chad, let's just start as if I didn't know anything about marketing. You know, I've been running my business for a number of years and, mostly have been doing like word of mouth, referrals, maybe an ad here or there, but no serious campaigning. And so if I'm just starting from the beginning, like what's a marketing plan, right? Like what should I be doing with it, or what should I be considering as I build out a marketing plan? Like what is it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Matt, because similar to an episode or two ago, we talked about business plans and how there's a couple of needs for a business plan. You may not need one immediately if you're not planning on securing funding or getting a loan, that sort of thing. But with a marketing plan, basically, I used to refer to it as you wouldn't go on a road trip without a map. That phrase is kind of outdated now. But it's like you want to go on a road trip without your GPS. And a marketing plan is really that. And it's not something that you have to follow tooth and nail, kind of like your GPS, right? You can exit at any time to fill your car up. You can exit at any time to get, to get some fast
detour,
food.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you see a scenic overlook, feel free to take that. But really, the marketing plan is a guide just to show what you should think about. Now, some people are like, you need to follow it every little bit. I think that it's important to have some flexibility, right? You may not have being a guest on a podcast in your marketing plan, but if somebody asks you to be a guest on a podcast, it doesn't mean, sorry, I can't. It's not in my marketing plan. It's like, no, like you can throw in some extra things. And if it's something that, costs money, just make sure that you have the budget for it in your business. But in general, it's just a guide telling you, what you should be working on, what factors you can use to measure it. It's also where you will put, like, what your message is, who your audience is, where you're going to talk to them, right? Where they hang out online, where they hang out offline, so that you can be able to connect with them on a regular basis. And it is also a great vehicle to pass on to people so that they understand. So basically, if you go from solopreneur to having 2 or 3 people, you can pass it on to one of the 2 or 3 people so that they can basically repeat what you've been doing. Because otherwise, you'll have to train everything. You'll have to train some things. But this way, they have it written down what is expected of them and what works.
Sure. So it sounds to me like consistency in marketing is going to be really important. Mm-hmm. And, speaking of, you kind of talked about, right, like I want to have a plan. I want to have like a roadmap, so to speak, on how to get there. But when you think about a marketing plan, is it just things that you need to do for implementation or strategy? What do you think are the most important components or do I need to think about them separately in formulating my marketing plan?
So when a lot of people do marketing, they jump straight into the tactics, right? Having a killer logo, a cool website, building that Facebook page, getting on Twitter, whatever. Jumping into Google Ads, that is the biggest mistake if you haven't thought about it. You need to come up with a strategy. And you'll find on this show, I'm not a huge ads person, just because ads are complicated, and I think there are a lot easier ways to market your business. But I'm also not saying that they don't work, because they do. They just have to be done correctly.
There's a place for everything. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's so I always start with the strategy first. It makes everything easier. It makes the tactics easier, because if you don't start with the strategy, you're jumping into everything blindly. So like with the website, right? A lot of people go design first. No, you need to go messaging first, right? Figure out who you're talking to, where they are. And it'll just save you so much time if you start with the strategy. And so typically what the strategy is going to look like is, so identifying who your audience is. I try to get as specific as possible. Some people don't like to do that. They want to be a little more broad. But something that is important to remember, right? Because it's like, well, I don't want to turn anyone away. But if you're trying to serve anybody and everybody, you're gonna end up serving nobody and no one. Like, that's just the fact. And
the niches are in the riches. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, well, the riches are in the niches. And even more so, it's like, if you know who to say no to say, hey, we're not a good fit for you, that is so powerful, because it closes you off to the people who are gonna, maybe not pay as much as you want your clients to pay. They're going to, you can get rid of the, headache clients. A mentor of mine calls them the PETA clients, the pain in the ass clients, and so it's PITA, not like PETA, the organization.
Yeah. That's a good one. I hadn't heard that one before. That's a good one.
But, that's, and there's sometimes that I'm like, I am like, okay, this client, maybe a PETA, and I need to, possibly say no, or possibly work something out, right? We also, so this is separate from this, but I do have a lead scorecard that basically is, a lead source scorecard that I use every year to basically be like, where did my leads come from? And I rate each lead source based off of, did those people who came from that lead source, were they easy to work with? Were they considered my target market? And basically rate them between 1 and 5. And if too many of them are close to 1, cancel that lead source out. I stop working. I stop trying to get leads, from there, right? So if Facebook's not cutting it, Facebook's out. I'm not gonna. We're not gonna use Facebook. So that's something else, and I'll probably package that up as a free resource and put it on the Business Rundown website at some point. Probably as we grow this this podcast, but that's basically I guess marketing plan 3.4, which is once you're measuring your results.
So let's talk about that. How do you measure success in marketing? So it sounds like you kind of mentioned, there at some point you gotta add some numbers and some data, and the data should ultimately guide you as to what you should keep doing or not keep doing. so you can be more efficient. So how do you measure the success of your or your clients' marketing efforts?
So there
What's the process? Yeah.
There are a lot of ways to measure marketing efforts, and it also depends on what sort of marketing you're doing. So I'm going to just go over like a basic, most businesses will have this. So for a website, make sure you have some sort of analytics installed. If you're doing Google Ads, it makes sense to have Google Analytics, have Google Search Console installed. This will help you track what users are doing on your site, how you got them, and then Google Search Console will give you some insights on your SEO. Those tools are pretty basic. Analytics you can get pretty deep into, but I'd also recommend for SEO using a tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs to track the keywords that you rank for on SEO, and also plan for your blog titles and all of that using their keyword research tools. What I like to do with my clients is set up a dashboard that helps with reporting, and it also includes my favorite, favorite tool, which is the CMO scorecard. So it's what the CMO or VP of marketing of the companies that we're helping can use as a guide. So it'll take too long to pull it up.
And for those who don't know, CMO is Chief Marketing Officer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're in healthcare, it's Chief Medical Officer, and we are not talking about that. I am not equipped to help your Chief Medical Officer. So even if I pretended, I did watch a lot of. I've watched every episode of Scrubs.
Scrubs, I was gonna say that's my favorite.
At least twice.
I met Turk, so.
Oh.
Yeah,
Right.
on a boat fishing. He's fishing next to me and my dad, but that's a story for another day.
Well, that yes, I want to hear a lot more about that. That's incredible. But yeah, so the scorecard has several different things on it. One of which is like KPIs, which is key performance indicators. Basically, what shows us that something is being successful, that we're performing well. Now, this is where a lot of people fail. Or maybe not fail, but do it incorrectly. And they will put vanity metrics as their KPIs, right? So key performance indicators, if we're able to get to 250 followers or 50 likes on our post. That's all good and great. It is. But is that a revenue driver?
So what is a vanity metric? So is it the likes and shares, or what would you say is like a vanity metric versus a really good KPI metric?
Mm-hmm. So follows are usually the biggest vanity metric, because you can literally buy Twitter followers, you can buy Instagram followers. Like if you Google how to buy Twitter followers, you're going to get a website that says, get 100 new followers right now for $10, and that's how a lot of people grew their followings to be, appear like they have influence, right? But then you'll look at their posts and they'll only get 1 or 2 likes or no likes, And so vanity metrics are metrics like that, where it's like they look good on paper, but there's no revenue tied to them. My friend Rory Vaden says, you can be Twitter rich but dollar poor, and there's a lot of people, we see them, they may have 10,000 followers, or some, maybe have 100,000 followers, but their business isn't bringing in revenue. Because they don't have an engaged audience. Now, if it's like, if the metric is having,
So
less vanity metric would be having 10% engagement on our social post, which means if you have 100 followers, 10 of those, like, you're averaging 10 likes a post, or 10 comments, or whatever that is, 10 interactions per post, which is, still a social related metric, but it's not just, like, how many people follow us, because that, you can't track that besides the number count, but you can't track what that turns into revenue.
Mm-hmm. So, to make sure that I understand, and on our audience, so a vanity metric might be something surface level, like followers. Like, I have 5,000 followers, 10,000 followers, things I could buy, but don't necessarily equal engagement. And a better KPI or a better key performance indicator would be that engagement that I have with my audience. So, for example, and again, I'm just using round numbers, if I have 1,000 followers or let's just use a lower number. If I have 100 followers, that's it, but all 100 engage with me, that's a good following. Mm-hmm. Versus having 1,000 followers and maybe 10 people engage with me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you can get really, if you can get over 10% of your following engaging with you on a regular basis, you're doing a really good job. Like,
that leads me to the next question. Yeah. So what are some of those metrics? Because I know, you can look at, say, like YouTube, and they're going to talk about click-through rate, or, I've worked with other marketing agencies, and, depending on the medium that you're looking at, that medium may have a kind of a standardized, like, click-through rate. For example, one group I was working with on OTT, they said, a good click-through rate would be like 0.5%. And we were getting 87 basis points. So not quite double, but almost double that average, which was a really strong sign for that ad campaign. So, I'm just kind of curious, right? Because I understand every platform, what's good on one platform may not be necessarily be good on another. But do you have maybe a guide or a gauge on say some of the more common platforms, like, say, Facebook or Instagram, which I know they're the same company, but Twitter, right? Do you have, like, maybe a guideline what would be good on maybe a couple of these bigger social platforms?
I don't have at least specific numbers and specific, like baseline points of what they would be. When it comes to a website, you're looking at a typical conversion rate of 2 or 3%, and that's typically what I tell people to, before you even have data, go with that. But really, it's once you start,
right, get them off the platform and onto your website. From there, 2 to 3% is pretty good.
But typically, it's you're gonna have to figure out what each what your conversion rate or your engagement rate is for your business to be able to work with the numbers, and so generally what I will tell people is, your first month, just get into something consistent, right? So if you're posting, right, post consistently. You're not going to have consistent engagement if you're not consistently posting, if you're not consistently sharing content. And then basically after your first month or two, that's your baseline, right? You can see, what your conversion rate is. If people are converting, a lot of times they're not going to convert on a new page, because it's just going to be basically a "hello world, here I am" type of thing.
Right.
But it's. I'm sure that those. That, like, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those have like an average. This is what to look for or what you could expect. But I also think it's hard because there's a lot of people who will set up those pages for their businesses and then never use them. So I think that skews the data. That the
overachievers and the underperformers probably really skew things. Like, let's say, for example, again, I'm throwing a totally random example. maybe average click-through is 1%, right, for a particular site, but the top 10% of users get like 10%, and the bottom gets 0. But average is bottom 90 gets 0, right? And so the average is 1. And so it's not, it's not really a true, even though the average may not be a true gauge because of how engaged the sources of the metrics come from. So I guess if you're in the top 10% and you're comparing yourself to other people in top 10%, that would be helpful. But just knowing generally, if you're new to the game, so to speak, it might be helpful to know that 1% is good, but the probability is, if you're doing, say, 2%, you're probably better than 50% of people out there, which is actually, so I guess we're talking about like mean, the middle number, as opposed to average, right? So, or median's the middle number.
Yeah.
Going back to high school math, or is that high school math? Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think it's introduced.
Element, yeah.
It's introduced younger, but used a lot in high school. But
yeah.
Awesome.
Well, this has been a great show and really informative. So let me just kind of review some of the big things that I picked up on. Number one, the purpose of a marketing plan. Think of it as a guide or a roadmap, and it's really there for consistency, to make sure that the message or branding is consistent from one person to the next in terms of how the message is sent out. The next thing that I gathered from this conversation was every platform is going to have unique metrics, but you want to have a system in place to measure that success. And you really want to start with understanding have a baseline. You might need a couple months to get a baseline to understand how you can improve. And was there anything else that you really think that the listener should take away from this conversation today?
Yeah, I mean, if a marketing plan is what's holding you back from marketing your business, start with something simple. There's a great resource called the One Page Marketing Plan. It's a book by Alan Dibb, and I think there's a template online. I think you can either go to onepagemarketingplan.com, or you can literally just Google the one page marketing plan template, and I'm guaranteed it's going to pop up. And just start with that. It's gonna take you in just to the simplest of simple when creating your marketing strategy. And
sometimes simple is good.
The simple is always better. I mean, think about when would you rather take the complex route, right? It's like that's what Apple gained popularity because they took out all of the complex that was in personal computers in the 80s, and made it as simple as can be. And I didn't even realize that until I got a Mac, and then tried to go back to a PC, and it's just like I can't do it. And I'm not like against PC or Microsoft at all. It's just I'm used to
different
work.
Sure.
So simple is good, and just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy, right? Simple is but easy to understand, but maybe not easy to
execute.
Perform. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it really sounded like we needed to focus on identifying that target market, because if we don't speak to them directly, we're probably not going to have the success we're looking for.
Yeah, and I'll answer a question that I had actually yesterday from someone either on LinkedIn or Twitter, and it was one was like, how do I identify my target market? And really it's you look to see who you've helped previously, or if the problem you're solving is a problem that you had and that you overcame, target who you used to be, right? So if it's someone in their 20s or 30s who is trying to start a business, right? That's what Matt and I are doing, right? That's our market. Focus on those types of people, and again, don't overcomplicate everything on this. The marketing plan is a living document. It can always change. You're not, bonded to anything. And if you decide, hey, this isn't working, change it. That's one of my professors in college would always say, monitor and adjust. And that has stuck with me to be where that's the wording of our continuation plan, is the monitoring and adjusting phase, where we just monitor, we make changes as needed, and keep moving forward and ensuring that we improve our marketing.
Absolutely. Well, that's great, Chad. Well, thanks a lot for all your insights today. Looking forward to another exciting episode of the Business Rundown tomorrow. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.